Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy. Last year, or a few years ago when I did this, it was right after lunch, so everyone was very sleepy, but everyone looks awake today. That's awesome. We are here to talk about the TFI and how we can start getting ready for it today so that we're not getting ready for it the night before. I know that it is something, it could be tumultuous, especially if it's our first time doing it. I want to begin with gratitude to get us in that right mind space. Thank you to our administrators that freed us up to come here today. Our own building Schweb's teams. I know that they are my village and my building. Without them, I can't get anything done. Our presenters throughout the entire conference, the participants and attendees, the Patan partners, our facilitator, Alexis Lewis, and our colleagues in our buildings. Oh, and our students and my children. And hers too. I'm thankful for everybody. Take a minute and think about what and who you're thankful for. And just take a breath, because sometimes it feels good. I like to start with group agreements like I do in my classroom. Be respectful. Make sure that you're part of the team. If someone has a question and you know the answer, feel free to add your own thoughts in. Have fun. Enjoy yourself throughout the presentation. Use this time to share ideas when we have that opportunity. And of course, take care of your needs. If you have a phone call, please don't hesitate to go out and take it. If you need to use the restroom, also take your time and do that. We're going to start by seeing who's in our room today. These were all the people I could think of that work in buildings. However, I want to know who you really are deep down inside. I know that there's the type A personalities who have started their TFI like 2 years ago, and they're probably doing everything every day and always having their things together. Who are those type A people who are always prepared and ready to go? We are jealous of you and want to be you one day. Who are the people that are getting their things ready the night before and you're pulling documents, and then when we're sitting there going through the TFI, you're like, I swear we have it somewhere. It was right here yesterday. This is who our presentation is for. Also, the coaches, the MTSS coaches, instructional coaches, teachers, counselors, social workers, school psychologists, a great help with our data, our 1st through 5-year coaches, 6 through 10, and 10 and more years.
So I'm going to start there, but talk about who we are. So I'm Megan Gankars. I am from Ben Franklin Middle School in Bristol Township School District. I've been there for 15 years. I started out as a choral music educator. I've had different roles on our SWEBS team. I've been just a regular team member. I took a break for a while, about a 3-year break, and I assumed leadership of our team in 2021, right as we were all coming back from the COVID break, and for myself from a maternity leave. This year, I have the privilege of being part of our instructional coaching team. I think it enhances my work as a SWEBS coach because I really get a picture at the whole student and the whole building. I'm not just living in that behavior realm anymore. You see the academic impact as well that SWEBS can make. So I'm really grateful that Gina invited me to co-present today. She's kind of been my SWEBS guru in a way. Our buildings are only 10 minutes apart, but for a long time our teams never really collaborated. And I think that that's the beauty of our presentation today, is that her team is really at that tier 3 with Fidelity, where we're really still establishing a core tier 1 program. So the leadership and the advice that is given today for the TFI is also given for a starter team who's working on their BOQ. So once you have that system and once you have these guidelines in place, it's just a quick flip right into TFI. You're already ready. So if you're on that starter level, which a couple of our buildings are in our district, if you kind of take this process in and start this archival process now, you'll be all set for the end of the year as well.
Something that Megan said that resonates so much is it doesn't matter where you are in this process. We always start at the beginning every single year. And even though we were able to reach tier 3 last year, we're always trying to add and revise all of our systems and processes to meet the needs of our students, no matter what year it is. I am Gina Mizaki. I'm an 8th grade ELA teacher at Armstrong Middle School. I started out teaching special education, learning support for reading and math. Currently, with my 8th grade ELA assignment, I have one reading class of emotional support students, so I get to get in there with the behaviors as well. I've been our SWEBS coach for quite a few years now. When our program started, we didn't know what SWEBS was, what PBIS was. We were like, what do you do as a coach? You know, we had no idea. So it has been a really awesome path and journey, and interesting putting this together and seeing all the progress that we made. Our district, we share a lot of students. So having the ability to call each other and say, hey, one of my kids is coming to your building, they just moved, and here's what's going on with them, here's the background. That open line of communication has been a huge support alone. We are both Title I schools. We have free and reduced lunches in our schools. Our IU unit is bucks at 22. We went through new administrative leadership, so our top admin, everyone kind of left at the same time, and we got a whole new group, which was scary and exciting because we were hoping everyone would be on board and support our initiative, and then they did, which was awesome. And our district is definitely in the process of unifying. We wanted to make sure that we were aligned. We wanted to be, instead of being this school, that school, and that school, we wanted to be Bristol Township School District. We were all in it together. We were a team. And I think that that vision is finally coming to fruition. And we are building our MTSS. So we're bringing the academic components in. We're at a tier 1 level right now, and we're building our universal screenings at that level, and hopefully we'll be climbing up that ladder.
I think another thing is the collaboration between all of our district-wide teams. I said earlier about Armstrong and Franklin, but all our teams are here too to support and, you know, see where they are as a building in their process. And maybe we haven't had that time to sit down and talk about, you know, where each building is, what they're documenting, but here to share resources as well. Another piece with that is also the fact that we meet as district coaches. We plan it 3 times a year to make sure that we're getting that K-12 alignment. Vicky's here. I had a meeting with Vicky last week where our schools are next to each other, and how can our SWEBS teams really collaborate and share students and build that. So I think that's a big part that brings heart to our SWEBS program as a district.
There's a QR code up here. This will give you a link to a few things. First, our presentation. It'll also give you a link to my binder and to Megan's binder. Our binders are different. However, they're set up the same way. I am very concrete sequential, so you will see mine with bullet points and oriented that way. Megan's is very creative and colorful. So we wanted to show you that even though they're different on the outside, the inside is both the same content.
But just like all great SWEBS resources, my template came from one of these sessions last year. I'm more a color picture person, and I just love the way, and I'm a paper person. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm more of a paper binder, so this was like a nice way to marry those two styles. So we tab things within a Google slide format that works really well. But it was based on the outline that Gina uses. So we'll give you a minute to load up. Feel free to copy, take whatever you need. No, sometimes it doesn't focus.
No, I got you. I wonder if it's the color.
I'll bring it when I come over maybe next week.
Making me jealous.
All right, and we'll have our contact information at the end. So if there's any problems with links or anything, just let us know.
Yeah, all these materials are also in the folder provided by Patan. Who is paperless in our room right now?
We are.
So a lot of people are already kind of doing an e-binder. How many people, you're going to tell me your age now, how many people had like a 5-inch binder 10 years ago and you were trying to put everything in there when we first started with Schweppes? Yes. I lost my binder, and there were some tears, and this is how I recovered, was going digital. So it came from a sad, scary place. One thing I do love about being digital, it's really easy to pull pieces and share. So we do all this hard work, and we had it all in this dusty binder that sat on a shelf somewhere. Having it digitally, you can celebrate your successes with a click of a button.
It's sort of like that capstone project that we all had at the end of student teaching or a field experience. And it really comes in handy when you're asked to present to your school board or present to other district leaders. You have everything right there ready to go.
Absolutely. So what you're going to see here is, this is the table of contents of the TFI. We're going to focus on the Tier 1 components first, and you'll see there's 3 subscales. There's teams, implementation, and evaluation. In the middle, I have a screenshot of the actual TFI with the 1.1 team composition, followed by the team operating procedures. And this is a screenshot of the binder. The reason I wanted you to see all 3 of those aligned next to each other is so you are able to notice the team compositions and the operating procedures mimic each other across the board. Each one of the team components, I took the subscales and inserted them there. All of our artifacts are also listed underneath, so you can see under the team components those good practices, such as the TIPS meeting template. Usually that's our actual tip sheet in there. There's a few things we took out for today. We have our team implementation checklist in there and ready to go, guiding questions for our meetings at each tier. And underneath of that, we have our team compositions and roles. Every year we're finding new ways to do things that are a little bit better than the year before. And this year when we were starting off, we did go back to the basics, like Alexis always tells us to do. And we start right away with our team compositions. So our teams have been up and running for 15 years. Going back to the team composition and asking everyone what part they want to play gives everyone a voice and a choice. And sometimes you might get tired of doing the same old thing year after year if you're always the data collector or if you're always the person taking the tips minutes. Starting where you left off has been huge because it gives us that jump at the end of the year. So we actually started our new binder at the end of last year, at the end of 2023. We took our binder and copied the entire thing and started right with our action plan. So as soon as our TFI was done in late May and early June, we put our action plan in place, and then we uploaded our TFI as well to the new binder. In this example, you could see there's blue links. I like to have everything in black and then underlined if there's a link in it. And something I noticed recently is keeping the links blue for if they're new that year. It helped guide people's eyes to it and help people notice it more so that it's not just the same words over and over again. Everyone can see easily and quickly where the adjustments and the changes are.
And same to that, like Gina was saying about doing the TFI preparation all year long. If you're going for that alignment and you have a piece that you're missing, highlight it. That way you don't just move on, you come back to it as a team to make sure that you include it for a whole complete report at the end of the year.
When we do our back to school rotations at the very beginning of the year, we started having our trainers look over their individual lesson plans and talk together as a team to see if we needed to make any adjustments. So you could see over here where our lesson plans are. Our bus lesson changed this year. It was something as simple as we wanted our students to line up at a different place at the end of the day. We tried it last year. It worked really great. We made the adjustment in the lesson plan so that we taught our students where their new place to line up was this year. And everyone in our building can quickly see, oh, wait a second, something changed in the bus lesson plans.
In ours, you're going to see actually site maps. We changed schools mid-year last year. We opened a brand new school, and PBIS was the foundation for all of our systems and processes that we taught those first days. So you're going to see like a site map, an orientation plan. Both of our buildings, I think, in fact, all of the Bristol Township buildings, those first days of school are built around PBIS. So we're happy to share that with you today.
Building consistency through routine has been imperative for us. The same routine of doing the action plan every year, knowing that TFI is coming up, copying the binder, going through the lesson plans. As the students learn those expectations, adults do too. And I noticed that our building started getting acclimated to it. The buy-in was better because it kept going and people knew it was staying around. It wasn't just here for a few days and leaving.
I was thinking there because I know I'm looking at Truman and Franklin in our building. It almost felt like every year we were starting over again because we didn't have systems like this in place. It was almost like we came to that first meeting and it wasn't like Gina had it where, all right, here's the action plan from May. Let's get rolling. Let's get a tip sheet going. It was just kind of floundering. And so this is a big point that really hone in on it, can really set the pace. And also let's talk about staff turnover. I know you have new members on your team. We've had a lot of new members on our team. It's so easy to just say, hey, take a look at 1.1 through 2 and just get acclimated in August so that they're ready for the work of the team.
And at one of our first team meetings this year, we went through 1.1 and 1.2 of the TFI. We went through it on the binder, not the TFI though. And it just gave everyone a refresher of where do we start with this? Why are we doing it? Why is the team composition so important as a foundation to the entire program? For updating the sections, we have a few different people working on that right now, so it's something to think about within your own team if you want to do it by role, if you want to have different people assigned to different sections. What we found that works best for us, we have our binder and canvas, and then anyone who needs to update anything, they can go in and do it within our team. It's locked out for the rest of the building, but everyone can see it and access it. This is going back again to those team roles, copying and renaming and revising your binder to keep it most up to date, and adding in your tip sheet for the new beginning of the year. Right now, we're doing the continual tip sheet, which has been amazing. Usually each month, or we would always have a new tip sheet so that we would have to go back and have two open at the same time. But now we're kind of using it as our action plan. So it's a continual tip sheet, and then every time we add something in, we can monitor the status of it and see where do we keep spinning our wheels, what conversation do we keep having over and over again. And having it written out right in front of us, that helps our entire team kind of see where we are and where we're heading together. Reviewing your action plan again when you come back for your meetings at the beginning of the year is so important to make sure that you're, as they said in our first session, the F word, fidelity, making sure that you are meeting those goals. I know there had been previous years where I go to the TFI at the end and I think to myself, oh my gosh, I don't even know that we looked at our action plan throughout the year. It was just something we were checking off at the end of the year. And what's the point in wasting all that time, because we just kept having the same roadblocks again and again. So looking over that action plan early in the year helped us know what artifacts we needed to add and what new systems and practices we needed to create to keep our sustainability in place.
It's also a great conversation starter at the beginning of the year. I don't know if your teams get faculty meeting time in the beginning of the year. Oh, is there anything from SWABs? Well, you're just getting rolling for the year, but have that action plan. One of the elements that you have to check off on TFI or the BOQ is that staff communication. And that was something where our team felt a little bit weak. So just starting the year with your faculty by communicating that action plan is really great too. Uploading
your data sources. I love the artifact section in the middle of the TFI. That's where we got a lot of our sources. And then our team members came up with new ideas as well. So we kept adding those in as we went. And then it helped keep us going. So I lost my train of thought there. Need my afternoon coffee yet. So we wanted to take a few minutes so that you could think to yourself, even if you have your some of your links with you, if you have like your Google Drive, to look at what artifacts you have, to see if you wanted to make a copy of what we have, and just kind of get some of those basic elements together. Does anyone have their things with them, or do you want us to keep going on? We were trying to read the room. We're giving you a choice here. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to know when my birthday is? Is it today? No. It was a good guess, though. When we were doing our team roles, too, thinking about who the reliable people are in your building and what their strengths are. If you have someone who's super duper creative, have that person be your decorator. Have that person do your flyers. I am very cut and dry. I like bullet points. I am not colorful, so I am not the decorator. I'm the person that links everything into it and makes those bullet points. So make sure that you're thinking about your team strengths as everyone's getting their roles. Will also help you keep your fidelity and your sustainability rolling.
One thing with the artifacts, I think that we added into our binder that went beyond, just different from the Google Doc. I like pictures. I like memories. I like to see the kids and what we're doing, because a lot of times I'm reading artifacts, I'm thinking, oh, my Linkit data and my SRSS, and I'm thinking all numbers and all that. But we do this for students. So I love to incorporate pictures of the students involved in our work. So whether it's the leadership teams that we form out of PBIS, if it's kids spinning the spinner at Armstrong Lunch, or out yesterday at the Mill Creek Franklin Parade, like that's what we want to celebrate. Yes, we get to that point through data and through sharing and planning, but ultimately that's what we want to archive in the TFI as well, is that memory of the celebrations that we did and the ways that we positively influence the climate and culture in our buildings.
Yes. We do have students fulfill roles on our teams. What we're doing this year is we have our rock store, and that's where students have their rocks tickets and they can go to the store and purchase and make trades for their rewards and their prizes. So we have students that are working with the rock store coming to one meeting a month, and then also our student council students come to one meeting a month.
We have just established our CARES ambassadors. So ROCKS is your matrix. Ours is called CARES. Our CARES ambassadors help with our Tier 1 reward process. We don't have a store right now, but we do what's called a Tiger Eats cart, and kids turn in their tickets and get a prize from that cart. They will be coming to meetings, and also inspired by, I think it was Hempfield District or another district, filming our videos this year, filming our video lessons in our new building. We have a new mascot tiger, and our students will be working on the new videos this spring. That's a big action plan for our team right now.
For Tier 2, this is the 10 to 15% of the population. However, it seems to be where most of our time went to once we were done with our Tier 1. Those students were needing the most. We were a little bit bloated in that Tier 2 area, and we wanted to try to make a difference there. So a lot of the things we put in place built that. For this section, what we did here was we showed that the team composition repeats itself in both spots. However, the difference interventions and the evaluation here. So the subscales, the teams and the evaluation are the same, the middle piece changes. That helped me understand differently that it's not this whole new brand, like big section. It was really just that intermediate piece.
And for a team like ours that's looking to move to Tier 2 and Tier 3, there's your action plan and your process right there. If you have a model TFI, or if you look at the checklist here, it helps with that planning. You can read and look at a model example. We understand what data has to be pulled. And I was just talking to a colleague in the room about check in, check out, like the little pieces of it. But to see how you're going to show the whole process by looking at a model like this is really helpful. So it doesn't matter where you are, like we said in the room with your team, this is the way that you aspire for that future planning.
Another thing we did a little differently with our Tier 2 team this year is we have a smaller group core Tier 2-3 team, and then we have our subgroups, our sub-team leaders. So the core group meets, and then we have intervention leaders. So our check-in, check-outs led by one person, our mentoring's led by another person. For our academic, math and reading, we're gonna have that start with new people as well.
I think that helps with the roles and responsibilities. Like if you have people think PBIS, they think, oh, the goodies and the games and the songs but you have people that are more literal data based, and that's what you need to convince your faculty of, that there is a place for all type of styles. If you're not into the big public show, displays of affection, we call it on our team, but maybe that's not your style and you're not comfortable leading that. Those intervention pieces are where people can really bring a lot of strength into the team. So when you're recruiting and all that, just make sure that you're telling that to your own staff.
This was how we built our interventions. We went through few different ways. So I always like to keep in mind that perfection is boring. We're always trying to improve and do what we need to do for our students. At one time, we had a list of like all these interventions, and we weren't really implementing them because we couldn't implement all those interventions. It looked great on paper, but it wasn't feasible. So finding out in the beginning of the school year and early that first marking period what your current students need, and then what interventions and practices are going to match those needs. I just came from an awesome presentation, function of behavior. It was huge for us because it helped us determine which interventions we needed to keep and which ones we could set aside for right now. We didn't get rid of them, but we're just not using them this year because we don't need to. Understanding who would facilitate the system for the practices of interventions. So having that lead take on that role and then have the people helping them. It helped build our support and our system overall. For the evaluation piece, we were keeping in mind what our desired outcomes were, because I always think about the data, the practices, the systems, and the outcomes. How will we evaluate the effectiveness and the fidelity of that intervention? So the progress monitoring was huge for us, figuring out how to keep up with that, how to track it, how to put it into a system. Right now we're using the data locker in Linkit, and that has been a huge weight off of our shoulders. We had spreadsheets galore before. Now it's all in one place. We can go in, find the student, see all their information. How we measure the effectiveness and of the fidelity of our intervention. We do have a fidelity checklist for each of our interventions. It's a quick 4 or 5 question checklist that we just kind of go through. It's in our binder, and checking in on that as we would progress monitor our students has been really helpful. And make sure that we're not just doing check in, check out. Lackadaisically, it makes sure that we're keeping up with it, that, oh no, is this student not successful because they haven't had their check-in, check-out person here for a few weeks, or is it because of something else? How can we accommodate them differently or better through a different intervention if needed? And then repeat the process. For Tier 3, this is our 5%. So I wanted to put this pie chart up there. 5% of 800 students is only that itty bitty bit. It's only 40 students, but 40 students is a lot when you're doing 40 different behavior plans and 40 different tracking and 40 different progress monitoring. I think about my special ed days when I was doing IEPs, and our caseload stopped at 20. So it's a huge task to take on 40 students, and delegating that amongst the team is so important and imperative so that there isn't burnout in the building.
I'm going to bring that back because this brings in the whole purpose of the conference too, right? PBIS and MTSS, and where do they coexist and how do they support each other? So I think in a lot of our buildings, the MTSS structure now is that you have a representative from the positive behavior. So going back to just the whole TFI inventory, this data is critical to the work of those teams. And we have a big piece of the behavior pie that we share with the MTSS team itself and problem solving teams. So being record keepers of some of the monitoring, the progress monitoring, things like that is really critical to those conversations. So again, if you have that organized in the model that you see that we shared earlier, it's really easy to bring that into those MTSS conversations beyond the SWEB's core team.
I put up here that most are implementing at some degree because I truly believe in our schools, most of us are implementing some sort of tier 3 at some degree. Even if it is those special ed kiddos, that is a nice place to start if you don't have your tier 3 up and running with the special ed teachers to say, hey, what does it look like to set that goal? When we were doing the hypothesis statements in another workshop, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like our present levels of education. So there's a lot that mirrors each other. I know our EL teacher and instructional coach said the same thing when she began understanding and studying MTSS. Oh wait, this is similar to writing those goals for our EL kiddos. And we have SAP. We have our outside resources. So it is bringing them all together and seeing how they'll integrate the best way to support the students that are needed. Building that tier 3 piece at the TFI. This again is just to show that the teams in the evaluation are the same, those top and bottom pieces. In the middle is what's different. It's the resources that we have and then the support plans for the students. So when we're building those teams, having the experts in each one of those areas come together and take those leadership roles was really important for us. And then having our system of evaluation for the end game was really important. Wanted to make sure that we have that evaluation piece in before we start, because once you're started, it's like, how do you evaluate it now? Because you already started it. So having the goals set ahead of time. 3.6 was a really important piece of the TFI for us, that student, family, and community involvement, looking and making sure that your district has contact with the parents. Do the parents know what's going on? Within our binder, we have links for different letters we sent home for the parents if we were doing the social skills groups, letters we have sent home to the parents for our check and connect and for check-in and check-out. We try to keep our parents as involved as possible, especially when we get to the tier 2 and tier 3 systems. And we also have had parents reach out to us and say, hey, can my child get involved with the social skills group? Which was really exciting.
And then from the tier 1 perspective in our binder, and I know in Gina's binder as well, we have the positive postcards that we use that we send home. If you know you have certain students that getting that ticket was a really, really big deal, and maybe getting two in a row, was a really big deal, a quick postcard home. Just little ways even at tier 1 that we can capture our families. I know that all our buildings, we try to share things on social media. We have a great PR person now, Kelly, who really promotes our teams. Even if it's once a month, part of your tip sheet is that PR or PR&R. It's really important for the growth of teams, because even if we're not getting parents in the building all the time, they're scrolling and they're reading and they like to see all the positive things that are happening in our schools.
Another piece for 3.6 is the external support agency and resources. So our social workers have been amazing knowing and having those external resources that your everyday ELE teacher doesn't know about, because I'm doing like literature things. And also our SAP liaison has been amazing because she has so many family resource connections. Here we have the quality of life indicators, the academic, social, and physical indicators, and the hypothesis statement. This was really important because I was looking at that quality of life indicator when we were working on this last year, and we just put in there our template of what we want the students to what we wanted our staff to use with students for the quality of life indicators, and it made it a lot easier for us. I'm hoping that we can upload that and link it for our upcoming years, and we'll have it all right there. But right now, having it in the binder is the next best thing because it's all housed in one place. And we're not looking through our Google folders or through our Manila folders or any papers for any of it. For the next 3 features, it was 311, 12, and 13. 311 is the comprehensive support, so it's supporting the student from all the different angles and the whole child. Having the students with their behavior support plan in place and monitoring that frequently really helped us be able to know what was working and what wasn't. We have some students that are on digital point sheets. We have some students that are on point sheets and they carry them around with them. We have students on punch cards. So just knowing your student and what they need was helpful. For the formal and natural supports, always going back to tiers 1 and 2, making sure that they're accessible, that they have the hierarchy of needs met.
I'm taking notes mentally because we're working on building our tier 2 and tier 3. Like I said, we're at completely different places, but keeping in mind that piece is so important. I mean, that happens in our building, in our special ed department, but as far as SWEBs kind of having a plan in the whole population of the school, really important. I know at level 2, I just sat in a session and having the digitized forms because I'm a secondary teacher. We didn't ask that question. Who is elementary in the building? And then secondary. So secondary, we found like sometimes having them carry that sheet through an 8-period day is really hard. So the digitized sheets and I have ones from a school now that are all calculated and they do all the tallying and all that is really beneficial. So I really appreciate that you raised that point about all the different forms that we can use, and you can do the paper versus digital.
Yes. A lot of times when we do our point sheet too, we use our matrix as rocks. So we'll focus on one of those components and see where the student's need is. And that way it always is relating back to our tier 1 and we can make that connection with the student. Our data system has pretty much been the same, and that's one of those things where you're not reinventing the wheel because it's tier 3. Your data is just building on top of each other. You pulled your universal data, then you're pulling the next group, and then you have your individual student data. So getting tier 3. So Megan, getting tier 3 is not as tumultuous as it might feel. Trust the process. I know when we first started, it was like 3 to 5 years for it to be fully implemented. In my mind, I'm thinking, why would it take so long? That sounds so silly. And it does, but when you build it slow and steady, it all ended up coming together in the end. And our students are able to follow through. I know during our COVID year, it was a shock to our district. It was a shock to our students and our parents. And having that forethought to go back to our matrix right away, because that was the one thing all of our students understood and had in common and resonated with, we went right back to our matrix and we made it for home. We had our rocks matrix at home. What does it look like when you're on a Zoom? What does it sound like when you're on a Zoom? How can you be cooperative with your peers? How do you interact appropriately? And our students were really able to take that under their wing and run with it.
I can add to that too, the way we build on things as we adapt. I know in our building, staffing is a big issue. Like some of your buildings, we now have lessons for mass coverage, dare I say, when we have to have students in communal learning and different things like that. But when you have your systems, and also back to the point of communication, like this one document is facilitating community involvement, parent involvement, student involvement, teacher involvement, admin, because all of the pieces of the puzzle are there in one place. So as far as trusting the process, if you transfer here and I go here, the core of the team remains intact. And I know in my building, it was like if so-and-so left, oh my gosh, we fell apart. Where do we start? But now it seems silly, but one Google slide and one doc is really a core foundation of a team. It doesn't matter who's the coach that year. It doesn't matter who was the secretary. You can, like Gina said, the roles and responsibilities change, but the core team is always there.
And having everything in one place, we always said, oh, if everyone was gone tomorrow and it was a whole new staff, someone should be able to pick up that binder and start new. Well, it didn't sound feasible until we needed to actually do that because my binder was lost. And we have people coming and going, like Megan said, all the time. One huge success that we love having at Armstrong is our 4.0 breakfast. Well, the person who always ran the report for our 4.0 students is leaving, and we were in a panic and like, who's going to do it now? And I was like, wait, we need to have the process written out so that we can defer to it when we need to. So really making sure that you have those directions and those systems documented so that when you want to go back to a practice or you want to start a new practice, it's always right there at your fingertips. You're not wasting time recreating the wheel again. Does anyone have any questions? In the back.
What have you found to be successful ways to get other teachers to buy into the PBIS process?
So for the recording, the question was, what are some of the things we use to get other teachers to buy into our process? In my building, it's just communication and transparency. When we give good, clear direction and vision for an event we're going to do, it's a clear, concise, they can easily see themselves participating. We've done all the brunt work with the planning and logistics, and you just tell me that I'm going to go to this hallway at this time. Okay. The other thing we've done too with our data is when I was teaching, I didn't have time to look at the data with that critical eye. So there's different ways that you report, and when you give it to your teachers, if it's just simple, comparative, this is where we are, this is where we were last year, any questions, things like that, just a quick glance. We've started putting just a one-sheet little meeting report. They don't need my entire tip sheet. They don't want to see any of my spreadsheets. They just want that we had this many referrals in the bathroom this month, and we had this many last year. And then they can ask questions later, and this is what we're doing to respond. So we always put like our comparative data and then our action plan. And then I always put help wanted. So right now we're recruiting for our Chico team. It could have been last year we're doing our Day of Awesomeness. I need some people to do this. And people respond because it's easy. They saw that. They know they have to tell me by November 3rd, quick email, text, done. Quick, easy, access, transparent in my building.
We're pretty much the same. One way we share our data in our building is we have like a slideshow, and then every month we report our data out on a new slide. And then we have a comparative of last year versus this year. So that's been really helpful. And we reward the teachers too. And they really felt appreciated. Everyone loves a surprise in their mailbox. And it really went a long way. One thing we started doing was, Diane does it for us, any student who gets their tickets pulled, the teacher's name at the bottom, they'll also get a prize. And then it gets shared out throughout the building every Friday. So everyone's like, oh, congratulations, I saw your name got pulled. So it kind of builds that positivity and the happiness a little bit more. And it makes it less about, oh, this extra work, and more about the positivity of it all. We
did that too. Did I tell you? We did the radio show call-ins too. I don't know if any of you have phone extensions, but we had the teachers that gave the tickets out. We did like an all call, but we said like caller number 12, extension 1234, you win Target gift card, and like just silly things. But like on a Friday afternoon when everyone's like burnt out already and you just need something like fun, like to lighten the mood a little bit in your classroom. But we're very deliberate when we do it. Like we did it was Halloween yesterday. Like everyone's just spinning on Halloween. But when we know there's core instruction going on or testing, we don't do things like that. But that's part of it too, the timing. You need to know your entire building's calendar. You need to know what's going on. Talk to your department heads, talk to your administration when you're going to plan something that you think is super fun and engaging, but it's going to really tick everybody else off. That's another thing to get buy-in. You have to be aware of the entire building.
Was there another question over here? When we do our TFI, The first few years, it took very long. It would take over an hour. Now we're able to just kind of click through it in 20 minutes. We get through our TFI 1, the Tier 1 TFI, and then Tiers 2 and 3 were maybe another half an hour. So it is a lot less time because everything's right there, and it's in order of the TFI. So if there was any questioning when we got to a question on the TFI, is it a 1, 2, 0, 1, or a 2? And someone said, well, I think it's a 2 and I think it's a 1. There wasn't any more debate because we would just pull it up and say, here's what we have. Let's look at this. Now where are we? And it was a data-driven way to prove what number we were. Any other questions? Well, we have about 10 minutes left. So if you want to get started on your TFI for next year, you can start that now. Thank you guys for being awesome.